Here's some momentum in the transfer portal. The Miami Hurricanes land their second player in as many days. This time, we go to the offensive side of the football. This young man goes from the bayou to the beach. CJ Daniels, welcome to the U.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hurricanes had a bit of a sluggish start first several days of the portal, but we're starting to see signs of that momentum. And if you also go based on how Miami staffers keep tweeting out these gifs of hurricane trackers and momentum trains, you got to think this is going to be a busy week continuing for Miami. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. The CFP is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. All right, folks, so this is, you think about how much wide receiver has become an extra emphasis, a position of need over the last couple of days since Isaiah Horton, filled out the paperwork necessary to enter the transfer portal. As of this very moment, 11:31 a.m. here on Wednesday, I don't think Horton has officially even hit the portal yet, so maybe Miami is trying to keep him. But, you're losing Xavier Restrepo. You're losing Jacoby George. There's probably a more than a 50% chance you're losing Sam Brown because he seems to be leaning towards trying to go pro and not coming back. So you've got a ton of openings at the receiver position. Now, I'm not discounting the young guys that hopefully we get a lot more this year from Ray Joseph, JoJo Trader, Nikar, Chance Robinson, Shamar Kirk. Got some talented true freshmen coming in as well. And Malachi Toney, Dalen Upshaw, they've been lighting it up in their state playoffs and championship games and all that. So, but still, you've got an opening for experienced receivers. And CJ Daniels, who was most recently an LSU Tiger. We'll talk about what he did at LSU. Really had his breakout season 2 years ago at Liberty, where he went absolutely ham at Liberty, and he had 10 touchdowns that season, well over 1,000 yards. So CJ Daniels, and folks, this is not an insignificant get. I'd like to think Miami's not done at receiver yet because they're still going after some others, but CJ Daniels chooses Miami over the likes of Auburn, Georgia Tech, and Ole Miss. 6'2", 205-pound receiver. So again, Miami needs size there because unfortunately our largest returning receiver may not be returning in Isaiah Horton. So Miami needs guys of that 6'2" plus build. And so Daniels is going to be a nice addition. I think he's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. He's actually heading into his 6th super senior year. So CJ Daniels is super experienced. We never used to see 6th-year guys, but the COVID eligibility year, I think we still have guys who have that under their belt where everyone got a free space on the board that season and the transfer portal. So this is a 6-year super senior. In his career in college, he's got 148 receptions, 2,434 yards, 23 total touchdowns. This past season at LSU, he was the Tigers' 4th leading receiver, 42 catches for 480 yards. He is considered to be the number 53 overall transfer portal player. There's a lot of players in the portal. He's the number 15 ranked wide receiver. And I think that landing CJ Daniels now, and we'll talk about why he decided the University of Miami was the place for him. But I think landing him, it's a testament to building relationships and playing the long game. Because something we're seeing now in the transfer portal era, recruiting players does not finish. When they're coming out of high school, recruiting does not finish when they sign with another school because so many guys hit the transfer portal year in and year out now. And even transfer portal recruiting does not finish if a guy picks another school, because a year or two down the road, he may become available again. And that's exactly what happened with CJ Daniels. So, a year ago, Miami was recruiting Daniels coming off of his breakout season at Liberty. And ultimately, his decision came down LSU versus Miami. And this was before he made his decision, before Cam Ward decided to skip the NFL draft and come to the U. Miami came in second behind LSU. And the primary reason that CJ Daniels gave for picking LSU over Miami was he had clarity on LSU's quarterback situation with Nussmeier, did not know who the quarterback was going to be at Miami. But the Hurricanes were able to parlay that relationship into landing CJ Daniels down the road. And something we're going to talk about throughout this live. We're live, by the way, so smash that like button and subscribe. We're going to talk on this episode of Locked On Canes about Miami's next transfer portal targets. We're going to talk about whether now we have some clarity at the quarterback situation, because some comments that CJ Daniels made to Cane Sport after his commitment to Miami this morning are extremely interesting. So we get this question, and a lot of people asked similar questions, but the first one in was from our guy, Victor Cabanas, who said, hey, Donno, do you think with CJ Daniels committing, does he have an idea who's going to be Miami's quarterback next year? Because I'll go back to what I just said. The primary reason why CJ Daniels chose LSU over Miami last year was he didn't yet know at that time, that was before Cam Ward, didn't know who the quarterback was going to be at Miami. He wanted clarity on that situation. So now, does he have clarity? Because you look at Miami's quarterback situation, and we definitely have a fan base divided, all right? Because a lot of you out there, and I can see the merits on both sides, and we'll talk about it. It's going to be a big theme of today's episode. A lot of you out there are like, hey, we should just focus on who we have in the room. Let's develop. Let's send the message to quarterback recruits that if you come to Miami, we're not going to recruit over you. We're going to develop you. Emory Williams should be the guy, a lot of you say. Or a lot of you say, you know what? You've got John Mateer out there. Maybe the stud from Washington State, Cam Ward's former backup. Maybe he would consider Miami. You have to try to get this guy if there's any possible way, because he's proven he can upgrade. Maybe you can have another 10-plus type of win season if you have John Mateer and you can fix the defense a little bit. That the fan base is very split on that. So who's it going to be? Does CJ Daniels know? Does he know Miami's going to sneak up on Oklahoma and swipe John Mateer away? Or does he know Emory Williams is going to be the guy? This is what CJ Daniels told Matt Shodell of Cane Sport. Shodell said, this is what CJ Daniels told him. My job is to catch the ball for whoever is at quarterback, whoever it is, Daniel said. I'm comfortable with Emory Williams. He says, I stayed an extra day at Miami to watch them practice and was comfortable with him for sure. I stayed after practice and asked him some questions. We had a great conversation. He's very mature. Daniels added that at the end of the day, whatever Miami does as far as getting a quarterback in the portal, it's kind of out of my control, he said. At the end of the day, whoever it is at quarterback, I just need the opportunity, whether it's Emory, whether it's another QB, it doesn't matter, he said. So Shodell wrote, after watching Emory Williams at practice, Daniels returned home on Monday, prayed on it, and then yesterday, Tuesday, he knew his decision. He called Miami coaches last night and committed, choosing UM over Auburn and Ole Miss. He's going to be on campus next month and participate in spring practice. That's great. I love when guys get here for spring. Quote, I had a good feeling about Miami when I was out there. I didn't know till I came back home and took my time and prayed on it, he says. When I committed, they were very excited, man. Mario Cristobal was very excited, very happy. He said it last year, too, that I would love to coach you. So that if you guys were hoping that CJ Daniels was going to lay exactly on you, yeah, Miami's getting Mateer or Miami's definitely rolling with Emory. You didn't get full clarity, but first of all, I'm really happy for CJ Daniels that he did his due diligence and stayed an extra day to watch practice, which is really important, because when you're going to decide where you're going to play your final year of college ball, and of course, he wants to get into the NFL in a little over a year's time, you're making that decision where you're going to spend your final year. You need to make sure you're comfortable with the way that entire operation runs. And so, yeah, he didn't give you any definitive answer on whether Miami's getting somebody out of the portal or if Emory Williams is going to be the guy next year. But I think every Miami fan can take it as a positive that This young man watched practice. It's not even that young. Was he like 24 years old? This player, CJ Daniels, watched practice with Emory Williams, presumably getting reps, probably right behind Cam Ward, maybe getting some first-team reps because Ward is going to play in the bowl game, remember? And he felt comfortable enough with Emory Williams. And also, this is something we said on the show earlier this week. Like, we said it, like, hopefully CJ Daniels spends some extra time with Emory Williams, gets to know him, gets comfortable with him to help him make that decision. And we can all take comfort in the idea that after watching Williams practice and after chatting with Williams after practice, CJ Daniels is comfortable with Miami's quarterback situation, whether it's Emory Williams or if they go out and make a big splash like John Mateer in the portal. So we got a lot more to talk about, guys. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. We got questions from the Locked On Canes insiders like Victor. We're going to be answering more of those when we come back. A lot of people have thoughts on organic recruiting versus transfer portal, slow cooking your roster versus microwaving your roster. That tends to be kind of the theme of today's episode. Is there anything new on John Mateer, with Oklahoma considered the favorite for the Washington State quarterback and Miami trying to play spoiler? We will get to that and so much more, my friends. We are only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. You want to keep it locked. We're only getting started with FanDuel. Folks, you can get ready to tackle all the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. What a deal. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're also proudly brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the perfect pairing with FanDuel, because with Prize Picks, you are getting the most fun, most convenient daily fantasy service you could ever imagine, and you're winning cash, guys, real cash, up to 1,000 times your money with Prize Picks. Guys, it's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members on Prize Picks and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks. Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account for sports action. Guys, what I love about Prize Picks is it takes me less than 60 seconds to make my selections. You simply select 2 to 5 players, predict if they're going to go more or less than on their stat projections, and you're winning real money. You can go cross sport, by the way. I can have 2 NBA players, 2 NHL players, a college football player, all in the same selection. Guys, it is addicting, and join now, because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Pixmas. Merry Pixmas to all. Download the app today, Prize Picks, and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 2 transfer portal pickups in as many days for Miami. I love how some of you Miami fans are just never happy because, when we talk about adding CJ Daniels and adding Zechariah Poyser yesterday, had somebody in the comments who was like, Wisconsin has already added 5 transfers just yesterday. It's like, huh? Oh, man. Somebody just asked me, by the way, if Miami's going to land Eric Singleton as well at receiver. I don't think so. Singleton, as of this morning, the standout Georgia Tech receiver, has been crystal balled to Auburn. So I am not expecting to land Eric Singleton. Now, if there is another receiver Miami can bring in, to pair with CJ Daniels, who they just landed, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the visit goes very well. And I think the visit starts tonight with KC Concepcion, standout NC State slot receiver Kevin Concepcion, who I think the top three for him at this point are Alabama, Texas A&M, and Miami. He had a few other schools in his top 6, but I think those 3 that I just mentioned, including the U, are going to be the top 3 for Kevin Concepcion. And he's a very different type of receiver than C.J. Daniels. He's a lot more like Xavier Restrepo, and you got to replace X next year because Restrepo is out of eligibility, unfortunately for us, and you could not do any better replacing Restrepo with Kevin Concepcion. So that's another receiver that I would love to bring in. I don't have much optimism for Zachariah Branch, standout wide receiver from USC who hit the portal. So here's the latest on. I'm not expecting him to Miami, unfortunately. I'd love to have him. He's a great player. But this is what Chris Hummer at 24/7 Sports wrote this morning. Branch entered the portal Tuesday evening with a do not contact tag, which typically means a player has an idea of where they plan to transfer upon their decision. Georgia is an early place to watch as a possibility. Arizona State, meanwhile, could be a dark horse contender of note. Branch publicly stated he wants to transfer to his next destination with his brother Zion, a safety at USC. I'd love to have them both, if we're being honest. There are some teams who won't want to take both, which makes it an interesting wrinkle in the process. But with him entering with the do not contact tag, and I haven't unfortunately seen any, I know that I think there was a graphic that came out that had Miami in like a top 6 schools to watch. So maybe I shouldn't give up complete hope on this one, but it doesn't sound like this one is going to happen for Miami. As far as John Mateer goes, in that same Chris Hummer article, he gave an update on Mateer. I don't know if this is outdated or doesn't make any sense, because to my understanding, and listen, I'm not tracking flights. I'm not that much of a geek with this stuff. I let others track the flights. I'll be tracking Santa Claus, though, in about a week. But I'm not tracking flights. I'm obviously not in Norman, Oklahoma, so I can't verify whether or not he arrived. But it was my understanding, based on the chatter I hear from Oklahoma insiders, is that they were expecting Mateer to arrive in Norman late last night and start off the visit today. So I would assume that visit is going on right now at OU, where they're going to try to lock Mateer down. And by the way, Mateer leaving Washington State basically killed that entire football program. Their head coach left to become the head coach at Wake Forest. They already lost their quarterbacks coach and offensive coordinator that Oklahoma hired. So you might as well fold the Washington State pro. Like, Mateer was like the last guy out, or I guess their head coach was the last guy out. But I mean, it was my understanding that Mateer was arriving in Norman last night, and Oklahoma, they're going to try to close the deal today. So we're still playing the waiting game. Miami's trying to give Mateer a lot to think about. It has been reported and confirmed by multiple different outlets that Miami's recruiting pitch to him, of course, it's going to be Cam Ward heavy, because he and Ward are former friends and teammates at Wazoo. Ward is going to make him understand, first of all, you can trust Shannon Dawson. Handed Ward the keys to the offense. He can do the same for you. Ward can tell him, hey, I improved my draft stock from day 3 to probably a top 5 pick coming up. You got an offensive line here that's going to protect you. So I think the recruiting pitch from Miami is a strong one. The recruiting pitch from Oklahoma, obviously, is going to be one of, familiarity. We have your OC here. We have your former quarterbacks coach here. And, he grew up a couple hours away from Norman, so I'm sure that's going to help their recruiting pitch as well. And most people consider Oklahoma to be a big-time favorite. But if Oklahoma doesn't close today and he decides to take a visit to Miami, then it is absolutely game on. But I don't really get this update that Chris Hummer put out this morning. I'm trying not to read too much into this, but he says, sources tell 24/7 Sports that Oklahoma is hoping to have Mateer in for a visit in the near future. That's odd, because, again, everyone out of Norman was reporting that he was arriving last night. So I don't know if Hummer missed the memo. He's a good reporter. So I don't know if he missed the memo, or if he's telling you Mateer hasn't actually arrived in Oklahoma yet. Can anyone verify that he's on campus right now? But I thought that was very odd that Hummer wrote that Oklahoma's hoping to have him in for a visit in the near future. He says the Sooners have natural connections with Mateer, including his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, and his quarterbacks coach, who, I hate trying to pronounce his name, John Kucheski. There's a lot of extra consonants in that name, from the last 2 seasons at Washington State. Other teams like Miami are aggressively looking to get in the mix for Mateer, he says. So that was that. A little bit confusing of an update. Because again, Chalupa Batman says he has Internet Explorer. So you think Hummer needs to refresh that page a little bit more to see if he's there or not? By the way, welcome to everyone who's in the live chat right now, because we are live. The transfer portal moves way too fast to pre-tape anything. So we are live all week talking Miami Hurricanes transfer portal. Miami today has landed CJ Daniels, wide receiver, transfer from LSU. Yesterday they land Jacksonville State safety, second-ranked safety in the portal, Zechariah Poyser. By the way, I love Miami's new potential safety tandem. You got ZP and ZP. Zaquan Patterson, Zechariah Poyser, and Poyser can also play nickel if you need him there. He's got some versatility. So I like these two transfer portal moves so far. So we get, sorry, Stephen C. I already answered your question. Stephen C. asked, any news on John Mateer? As far as we know, Oklahoma is going to try to get him to commit today. It seems like the Oklahoma folks have some optimism that that's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, get ready for the meltdowns. They're going to be like, Miami's trying to buy him. Oh, look at this. He's a mercenary. As if Oklahoma's not offering the kid any money. They're offering him 7 figures by all accounts. So we'll see. We'll see what Mateer decides to do ultimately. We get a really good question from Todd B., who says, hey, Donno, how does our looking to a quarterback in the transfer portal affect our ability to keep Luke Nickel and our other quarterbacks? We get a similar question from ND Hater 85, who says, in your opinion, if Miami lands Mateer, do we lose Emery and Judd? And if you had to choose, which direction do you hope Miami goes in? I think it sets a bad precedent, he said. And a lot of people sent in similar questions. Okay, here, if I look at it from Mario Cristobal's perspective, okay, his number one goal is to field the best possible roster, both for the short term and the long term, right? So sometimes it's hard to reconcile the two of those things at once, because the transfer portal is both a blessing and a curse. And as far as the blessing of the transfer portal goes, when you're a big-time Power 4 program and you've got good NIL behind you and you've got a brand that still holds weight, and obviously there's so many other programs, SEC and Big Ten, that hold big-time brands in college football, you have an opportunity like never before, because this, transfers were not that common before the portal era that started 5 or 6 years ago. So you have an opportunity to solidify and sometimes even revolutionize your roster with one move, especially at a position like quarterback, the most important position. So Mario Cristobal is having to walk a very fine line right now, where he's looking at his quarterback scenario and says, hey, I really like what I have in our room right now. And Emory Williams is very well liked by the coaches, very well liked by his teammates. I've seen him practice. He's developing. This is not the same quarterback that he was when he first walked into the room a couple of years ago at Miami. But you also need to do your due diligence and make sure you're fielding the best possible team. And yeah, we need to improve the defense. There's no question about that. But offensively, there's great foundations with Miami's offensive line, Miami's running game, even though we're going to have a lot of new faces at receiver and tight end next year, although I think guys like Riley Williams and Elijah Lofton can really step up at tight end. Miami's got very good offensive foundations, and, you got to think about the way the fans are going to react. If Miami is able to go out there and land John Mateer, some fans will say, I hate this. We might risk losing some of our quarterbacks now. We're setting a bad precedent. But then if Miami doesn't try to land John Mateer, and let's say we go, 7-5, 8-4 with a young quarterback next year, a lot of people are going to say, how come we had an opportunity to go out and grab an elite signal caller and we didn't? We settled for what's in the room. So all of these thoughts are swirling through Mario Cristobal's head. And I actually believe, from where I sit, I like the way Miami is playing their quarterback room right now. They're not going out there just trying to land anybody. They haven't been going out there trying to land Fernando Mendoza and Malik Murphy and Darian Mensah, for example, who's already landed elsewhere, because I think Mario Cristobal's philosophy has been, we are only going to go for a portal quarterback if we know this is someone who can really change the direction of our program for next year, like someone who can be the best possible replacement for Cam Ward. Miami's not getting in it for just anybody. They're only getting into it for a guy like John Mateer, where the juice is worth the squeeze there. And he's got 2 years of eligibility left, by the way. So, folks, this is a delicate dance. This is the reality. Unless you go full Dabo Sweeney and just say we're never going to use the portal, or maybe you go full Mike Norvell and it's like, who needs high school recruiting when I can just portal all the way? Mario's trying to find a delicate balance somewhere in between. So, like, he owes it. He owes it to the university, and he owes it to all of his players to find the best possible addition so that Miami can win the most games next year. But you also don't want to disrupt the ecosystem of the players you recruited. It's really, really hard to accomplish both of those things. That's why you have to trust, in this case, Mario Cristobal and his staff to identify the spots that don't need portal supplements. Like, I don't think they're going for any running backs. They don't seem to be aggressive at tight end. You know, they've been kind of hit or miss on the offensive line, but I think the offensive line is going to be good regardless. Like, there are certain spots where they don't need a lot of help, other spots where you just have to trust them to go out there and make the right moves. And I agree with Ray's Kane. We need to find the right guys. Don't find just any guy. Just find the right guys. Oh, yeah, and Willie T's right. I think Dabo Sweeney did get a transfer player, which is like, maybe Dabo is changing his ways. I don't know. All right, we got a few more transfer portal notes and some questions to answer on the other side, including, are we going to see any changes on the coaching staff? You guys want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. College football playoff is starting this weekend, guys. I wish Miami was in it, but I'm still excited to watch these games. I want to see SMU versus Penn State. Is going to be a super compelling game. And it's that time of year. The CFP is back. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with a college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup. That's SMU battling Penn State at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wanted to say one more thing about Zechariah Poyser, who Miami added yesterday, the safety out of Jacksonville State, because, you know, we did a live reaction episode to that. And at that time, I was not aware, I am aware now, that Poyser, it's been his lifelong dream to be a Miami Hurricane. I mean, how cool is that? How cool is that Poyser, and if I had known this before his Miami visit, I probably would have dropped the Donno ball for the Hurricanes to land him. I did think we were in a good position, but I didn't realize that by, you know, Poyser getting that offer, that he was literally getting to live his dream. And he told a story afterwards. He pranked Mario Cristobal because he called Cristobal, you know, to tell him his decision. And a lot of times, not every recruit does this, but the classy ones do. Before you tell the team you're committing to, you usually will call, you know, the team that came in second to kind of break the bad news to them. So Poyser called Mario Cristobal and he said, "Coach, I'm committing to LSU." And it was a video call. And he's like, Mario's eyes kind of got wide. They said, "Just kidding, Coach. I'm committing to Miami." And then Cristobal was super happy with that. I thought this kid's got some personality. So Zechariah Poyser, who's got 3 years of eligibility left, I think it's going to be a strong addition to Miami's defensive backroom. There's no question about that. We get this question from Quan the Cane, who says, "Hey, thoughts on Isaiah Horton and players on the team that may feel like they're being recruited over? I feel like Mario values experience, but I also feel like our younger players would be productive here and other places as well." Yeah, that goes into what we were just talking about. And listen, I don't fault Isaiah Horton for, you know, filling out his portal paperwork. I would love Miami to find a way to make him stay. I don't think the door is completely closed. I don't want to make it sound like they would force him to find a way to convince him to stay, because I don't think the door is completely shut yet on Isaiah Horton. And I said it yesterday. You know, because Eric Singleton is going to Auburn reportedly for a 7-figure NIL sum. Like, if you would have had to bid 7 figures to bring in Eric Singleton, you know, maybe instead of using that money on Singleton, you use that money on players like Isaiah Horton and others that are currently on the roster to to keep these guys feeling the love. Because I think one of the reasons why so many players around the country enter the portal is they feel like you get more value if you're on the open market than you get when you're loyal to the team that you're in. So as far as the whole over recruited thing goes, guys, like part of it is the truth is told on the practice field. So a lot of times fans will base things on, hey, this guy was a former 4 or 5-star recruit, so how come he's not playing more? We're not out there watching every practice. Even media members, rarely get to watch practices, and not at all during the season. Only during spring and fall camp we get to watch some practices. So let's not always assume that just because a guy is, a former high recruit that he's necessarily developing. But then do you blame the coaches on the lack of development? It becomes a whole circle of confusion on that one. We get this question from Steve in Port Orange, who says, hey, Donno, any word on Damian Martinez staying for next year? Martinez is going to play in the bowl game. Doesn't necessarily mean he's staying next year. But the last I heard, comments from Martinez's NIL agent were he is considering returning for another year. Like, he'll get drafted this year, but if he sees an opportunity maybe to raise his draft stock even higher, I'm sure he's got a good NIL situation here in Miami, so it's not like he's playing for free. I think there is a chance. I'd probably put it at slightly less than 50%, but I think there is a chance that Martinez comes back next year. We get a question, hey, what changes, if any, do you think Mario makes to his staff? Do you think Guidry will modify his defense? If Guidry's still the defensive coordinator next year, he has to modify his defense. Like you cannot run it back from last year. Obviously upgrading the personnel, if Miami's able to keep doing that. Poyser was a nice step. I think you need another linebacker. You need more defensive linemen. Probably need a cornerback or two. So there still is work to be done, both from a personnel standpoint and an X's and O's standpoint on the defense. I also think it's kind of funny that I see a lot of Miami fans that are like, okay, because it's mid-December and we haven't made any coaching changes yet. They're like, Mario's completely running it back. Guys, you've seen the last couple of years. We've had changes on the staff every single year, and for whatever reason, stuff usually doesn't happen until late in the process and in January. Cristobal is meticulous when it comes to not getting rid of someone unless he knows he's upgrading with the replacement and having an idea who he's going to replace someone with. And there's a lot of moving parts with that stuff. Sometimes you may be considering someone who maybe is currently coaching for a team that's in the playoff or currently coaching for an NFL team, or maybe you're not sure if so-and-so is interested or available yet. Like, there's a lot of moving parts here. I know that there are some head coaches out there who make moves very quickly and very decisively. Mario Cristobal likes to dot all of his I's and cross all of his T's. So I don't want you to think that and I'm not even saying like we're bringing in a whole new staff or anything like that. I'm just letting you know, if you base on the way Cristobal has worked the past couple of years, do not think that just because things haven't happened in mid-December that they're not going to happen, because oftentimes these moves will take place in January. So, just keep your eyes on that. Someone says, do you think the Dolphins are going to draft any Canes? Maybe Jalen Rivers. The Dolphins need offensive line help, right? I mean, I wish the Dolphins would be in a position to draft Cam Ward, because I like Tua, but I'm not completely sold on Tua. But Ward is probably going to end up at the Giants or Jets or with my luck, some team that I don't like. All right, I appreciate everyone for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We've been live the last couple of days, so make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we will talk to everyone again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.